Okay, the topic of this video is why organized families don't have to be afraid of taking business risks. Okay, so long story short, I want to differentiate an organized family that's working together as a group and trying to accomplish things from an individual who is trying to do things on their own, right? So oftentimes when individuals go out there, they have to be, it's a little bit, there is some apprehension because, when you're an individual, you only got so much money, you only got so many chances to take before you're out of chances and out of money. Logically speaking, it makes sense for a person who is operating under those set of circumstances to be a little bit apprehensive, to be a little bit afraid, to be a little bit more risk averse because they only have so much resources. So what I want to talk about in this video is why, as an organized family, we don't have to be as fearful as those individuals are. Okay. Before I move on to the spreadsheet, I'm just pointing out that I have also written an article related to this topic. So there's an article and a video. You can go to the website and check out the article, houseoutlaw.com. You can see the blog, and then you can see this article as well. But I'm going to talk about the video. The bulk of this video is going to be based on this spreadsheet that I've created. Okay. Okay, the first thing we'll do is lay out the assumptions, right? I want to set the scenario so I can go over this example and make it clear what I mean by an organized family not having to be afraid. Okay, so let's assume here, the first assumption here, let's assume that this is the average monthly budget for a member of the family, right? So theoretically, I could write out a budget of 50 people and put an individual budget for each person, but I don't want to take the time to do that. So essentially what I have here is just an average budget for a family that has 50 members, right? So you can imagine that if a family has 50 members, there will be some people who make more money, some people who make less money. What I'm saying is once we average all of those numbers together, this is what the average budget is, okay? Just to make this, keep this example simple. So the average budget has income of $5,000, has expense of $3,000, and says that, and see, the average person in this family has $2,000 left over a month in order to invest. Okay. Now, if each member has $2,000 left over, and we have 50 family members, then that means that every month this family has $100,000 to invest. Okay. Okay. And if the family has $100,000 every month to invest, then that means if we multiply this monthly number by multiply this 100,000 by 12, then we'll get the yearly amount, which is $1.2 million. Okay, and the one thing that I would definitely want to point out is this is every year, right? So if this is the family's monthly savings, and then this is the family's yearly savings, the thing to note here is that this is something that the family is saving every year. They're saving $1.2 million every year, not just 1 year, not just the first year, but this is something that happens every year that the family is operating as a unit. Okay. Okay, so in order to illustrate the point that I wanted to make for this video, let's consider a family that's making this 1.2 million every year. They're saving 1.2 million every year. Okay. Now, what I've done here is listed out a few different scenarios where a scenario that outlines what the family could do in different years, right? So here we have what happens in year 1, what happens in year 2, what happens in year 3. Okay. Okay, specifically, let's say in year 1, we take this $1.2 million and spread it out over 12 different $100,000 investments, right? So in year 1, if we count these up, this is that $1.2 million that came in year 1. And what we did is bought a $100,000 investment, bought another $100,000 investment, all the way up to 12 investments. So we have invested that 1.2 million and we've spread it out over 10 $100,000 investments. Okay, so that's what's going on there. In year 2, this 300,000 times 4 still equals 1.2 million. So this is the 1.2 million that the family has saved in year 2. But instead of spreading it out over 12 businesses, we have just spread that out over 4 businesses and have invested $300,000 a piece into each one of those investments. Okay. Okay. And in year 3, instead of spreading that money out over several investments, what we've done is just used that entire 1.2 million and invested it in one investment or one business. Okay. So long story short, the point is when you have this amount of money, this 1.2 million coming in every year, the configuration of your investments can be whatever you want it to be. I'm just showing the different range of things that a family could do. We could take that first 100, that 1.2 million, and spread it out over 12 businesses. We could spread it out over 4 businesses, or we can spread it out over one business. And I'm just showing that those different scenarios in different years. Okay. Now, after these investments have been made, let's fast forward. To year 5, right? So these investments were made in year 1. These investments were made in year 1, and these investments were made in year 2. This investment was made in year 3, and now to get the value at the end of year 5, which is what's represented in this column, let's fast forward in time, right? So now I want to illustrate basically the point that I'm trying to make for the entire video, right? Why organized families don't have to be afraid of taking business risks. And let's make it clear, like, business is risky. Anytime that you invest any amount of money, whether it's this $100,000 in year 1, or this $300,000 in year 2, or the 1.2 million in year 3, anytime that you invest money, there's a chance to lose money. And many business endeavors do lose money, and many people do lose money. And this is one of the prime reasons why people are and should be afraid to go into business sometime. So the main point that I want to illustrate for the organized family is why, for us, we don't have to be as afraid as the typical individual who's out here trying to be self-made or do things on their own and have only so much resources at their disposal, right? Okay. So yeah, in this column is the value of the investment made in the year 5 period. Okay. So as we can point out here, right, you have made, let's see, how many total investments have we made? If I select all of these, and then we see 17 total investments have been made. Year 1 has 12 investments. Year 2 has 4 investments. Year 3 has 1 investment, for a total of 17 investments have been made. Now, if we look in this column here, we'll see that all of the amounts that are in red are the investments that we've lost money on, right? So out of that 17 investments, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of these investments have actually lost money, right? And then a handful of these investments, as you see here, 100,000 was invested, and after 5 years, it's still only worth 100,000. So this is what we call breaking even, right? So we haven't even made money on 1, 2. Let's see. On 2 of the investments, we haven't made money. So on 2 investments, we haven't made money. On 6 investments, we've lost money. So that's a decent chunk of businesses that have failed, investments that have failed. But the point is, when you spread your money out over many different investments, it's not a huge deal that a handful of them fail, right? Our point is to spread our money over enough investments, and the idea is that some investments will succeed, some investments will fail. But as long as more succeed, then in the long run, we will be okay. We will still make money. So it's okay to not be afraid. It's okay to not be afraid to invest, because some investments will lose, and it's just not a huge deal. Okay. So yeah, let's look at a few of the things, a few of the examples specifically. Like we say, these first 2 investments in year 1, we invested $100,000 a piece, and then in year 5, both of these investments were worth $0. So this was a complete loss. We lost every dime that we made entered into those 2 investments. We lost every dime. Okay. This investment that was made in year 1, we didn't have a complete loss, but we lost some money. So we invested 100,000, and now this investment is only worth 75,000, which means we lost $25,000 on that investment. So this investment was also a loss. These 2 broke even. This investment lost as well. Invested 100,000. Now it's only worth 70,000, which means we lost 30,000 on that investment. Down here in year 2, some of the year 2 investments were not successful. Invested 300,000 here, and now this investment is only worth 250,000, which means we lost money. Same thing here. It was a big loss for this one. Invested 300,000. The investment lost most of its value, and now it's only worth 50,000. Okay. Okay. So we know that losses are always possible when you're investing money. But what also happened over this same time period, and as we approach year 5, what has also happened is some of the investments that we made were successful. This investment in year 1 ended up being worth 130 at the end of 5 years. This investment 150, so on and so forth. Let's see, one of the $300,000 investments now worth 350. One of them is now worth 550, and then The year 3 investment, our largest investment, that we invested 1.2 million in, now it's worth 2 million. So some of the investments have went up, some of them have went down. The point is, when you are able to have a consistent amount of money to invest, then you are able to spread your money out with the understanding that some of these investments will be successful, some of the investments will fail, and we're perfectly fine with that. Basically, what we're using is what's called like the private equity model. You may or may not be familiar with that term. You can look it up if you're not. But essentially, that's all private equity is. They have a big pot of money. They spread this money out over a bunch of different investments with the understanding that many of these investments will fail. Some of them will be successful, and we hope the ones that are more successful will make up for the ones that we lost on. Okay? So. And if that is true, we will have made money overall, right? So let's just look at a quick summary of what has happened in this scenario, right? If we add up all of the money that we invested over those 3 years, we invested a total of 3.6 million, which is the 1.2 times 3. Like, we save 1.2 every year, and then after 3 years, we will have invested 3.6 million. Well, at the end of this 5-year period, this 3.6 million has turned into 5.5 million, right? So even though we've taken losses on some of these investments, we still have an overall gain. And the amount of that overall gain is what I have here. The 5-year increase in value is basically this 5.5 million minus this 3.6, which gives us this 1.9 million, right? So even though we lost on many of these investments, we still made money overall, right? And the return over that 5-year period was basically 53%. So we made 53% on our money over that 5-year period. And if you divide that 53% by 5, then basically what we've made is a little bit over 10% per year, which is not unreasonable. This is not a crazy number when you're investing in businesses of that nature, okay? Okay, so as we recap this video, I just want to wrap up with the last few points, just reiterating, right? Number one, losses are always possible when you are investing. The people who end up winning in the long term are the people who are able to bounce back and keep going even though they take some losses, right? So as we see here, some of these investments are definitely losses. This is a total loss, complete loss. This is a pretty big loss here as well. As long as we don't lose on every investment, which we won't, because as time passes by, we'll get smarter, we'll make better investment decisions, and as long as we're able to keep going while we get smarter, then ultimately we will end up making better investment decisions, and the investments that we make will have a better chance of being successful. So I like the chance of us having more successes than failures, but the ability to weather some of the failures is very important, and that's what we see here for number one, okay? Okay, so that brings us to number two. We must create the ability to be persistent. We must create the ability to be persistent. That's what separates the winners. If being persistent separates the winners from the losers, then we have to be deliberate about creating the ability to be persistent. And the way we do that takes us to number three. The way we do that is by getting organized for systematic investing, right? And that's essentially what I'm talking about here. What we're doing is systematically investing year after year. The family is coming together as an organized family. So we got 50 family members working together. Because we have 50 family members working together, we're saving $100,000 per month. Because we save $100,000 per month, we have $1.2 million per year. And then once we have that $1.2 million every year, not just 1 year, but every year, then we spread that money out over different investments according to our own criteria. And then that has and if we do that successfully, essentially what we've done is created a systematic way of investing. So number three, and very important, is very important. We must be systematic with what we're doing. We can't be ad hoc like a lot of individuals are when they come out here and try to do these things. Okay. Yes. So which brings us to number four. When we do that, we win some and we lose some. When we have created a system, we know that we will win some and we will lose some, but there's no reason to be afraid, right? It's important to point out. Included in this is already, we see our income. Our income is this $5,000 for the individuals, average individual, $3,000 for expenses. What's important to point out here, all of your life expenses have been taken care of. We have food, we have clothing, we have shelter, etc. All of this money that's being invested is the money that's left over after our needs have been met. So this is another reason why there's no reason to be afraid. Everything else has already been taken care of, and we're just investing what we have left over. And then now that we're investing that money, we're investing it in a way that can also decrease the amount of anxiety, the risk averseness that we will have as we enter into these investments. Okay, so that's basically the presentation, and yeah, that'll be it. Okay.